What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Gold Standard NFL Recap Show. I'm your host, Rob Stats Guerrero, alongside Levin Black. Levin, week 14, at least for us 49ers fans, as I'm wearing my Victory Monday shirt. It's pretty good.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
That is not how that goes at all.
No, it's not. I totally messed it up. I'm too busy. I got, what'd you hit there? I just got a whole bunch of feedback.
Oh, an explosion because you blew up the start of the show?
No, well, I have peanut M&Ms in my mouth, and it kind of threw me off.
Yep, because you got the caught on your throat. You got like the Steve Carell with the tiramisu in the office. I know exactly what you're talking about. If you're new to the show, this is where we recap every single game that took place on Sunday. We run through, we give you our observations, our thoughts, our feelings, and we basically bang through all the games. So thank you for joining us.
I don't have feelings. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. Let's start with the game of the day. Rams, Bills, 44-42. Defenses need not apply, okay? 900 plus yards of offense, 0 turnovers, 0 quarterback sacks. This was an incredible game, keyed by a critical Bales error in time management at the end of the game, but the Rams get a must-win victory.
Is it weird that I'm more impressed with the Bills coming out of this game? They scored 42 points in 21 minutes. They scored 2 points per minute. That's insane. Really what happened here was the Rams kept being able to stay on the field. It was third down defense. The Bills would do their job on first and second down, and then they would give it up on third down. The Rams were 11 of 15 on third down. That's why they dominated time of possession, because they needed 3 downs every time to go get that first down. And they ended up dominating the clock. That's the only way they win this game, was dominating the ball.
Josh Allen had 3 touchdowns rushing, 3 touchdowns receiving. First player to do that since Otto Graham back in the NFL championship game before the Super Bowl even existed. Okay. That's how much of a mutant Josh Allen has been this year. As Maria points out, Josh Allen is unbelievable. Two critical things in this game, both went in the Rams' favor. The first was a blocked punt. It was 10-7 Rams. The Bills were punting. All of a sudden, bam, Rams block the punt. They return it for a touchdown. They go up 10, and they basically just never stopped scoring, and that was just enough to hold off a furious rally by the Bills.
Josh Allen is insane. So this is not the first season in his career that 13 games in, he has 23 passing touchdowns and 9 rushing. Not the first time in his career. However, the last time he did it, which was last year, he had 14 interceptions. He has just 5 this year. That's the difference this year for Josh Allen. He's not turning the ball over, yet he's still making all the crazy plays.
Josh Allen, I saw this stat on Twitter. This is absurd. Josh Allen has 62 rushing touchdowns in his career. That is more than Hall of Fame running back O.J. Simpson, Hall of Fame running back Terrell Davis, Tiki Barber, Roger Craig, Chris Johnson, Arian Foster, Christian McCaffrey, Nick Chubb. It's absurd. Josh Allen has more rushing touchdowns than Hall of Fame running backs. And Josh Allen is 28 years old, by the way. He is an absolute mutant, but I do feel like the Bills screwed up a critical thing at the end of this game, and it was a time management thing, and we actually saw the same thing, Levin, in the NFC Championship game last year. So the Bills are driving down. They're down multiple scores, okay? They get down to the 1-yard line because there was a pass interference penalty in the end zone. There's 1 minute and 6 seconds left in the game, and the Bills have all 3 timeouts. And to his credit, Tom Brady was all over this. He nailed it on the broadcast multiple times. What Brady was saying is you can't have anything inbounds because you need all 3 timeouts to stop the clock and get the ball back. You don't want to have to rely just on an onside kick. Buffalo got the ball at the 1-yard line. Now, look, Whether they didn't think of this or whether they just figured it was their best option to score, I don't know. They try a quarterback sneak with Josh Allen. He doesn't get in. And so Buffalo has to use a timeout to stop the clock. He eventually scores on the next play, but they only had 2 timeouts left. They couldn't stop the clock after the onside kick, and they end up losing a game where Josh Allen has 6 total touchdowns, never gets sacked, doesn't turn the ball over. Unbelievable.
It will almost definitely never happen again in his career.
Who knows?
Like, I get it. You can't have him not get it, but what's the probability that he scores a touchdown on a QB sneak there? Like, probably 95%.
Right. That's why I mean they may have been aware of it, but just figured this is our best option to score. I mean,
rather than him scrambling around and then maybe having to throw the ball away, and now you wasted 10 seconds and you got to go to another play. Yeah. It is what it is. It's one of those that if it had worked, nothing's ever said. Nobody talks about, ooh, that was risky. It's, well, yeah, you're going to do that because he's pretty much guaranteed to score. That would have been the reaction. So I don't blame it. And as Steve was saying in the comments, you assume the Rams go 3 and out. Not a very safe assumption. I understand what you're saying. You're not saying they would have gotten the 3 and out. It's just they would have had a chance at it.
Exactly. You have a chance to get the ball back and stop the clock all 3 times. That's what I was saying. But you're right. I mean, the odds that the Rams would go 3 and out, slim to none. But Brady was all over that call in the game, and I want to give him credit because I've been banging on him because I don't think he's very good. But like that's the stuff that he needs to emphasize because like he was so good in those critical clock situations. Yeah. That's the sort of thing that he needs to, keep talking about on the broadcast. That's what could make him different. Speaking of executing in critical situations, let's go to the Sunday night game. Chiefs, Chargers. I don't know how Kansas City keeps getting away with it, Levin, but they doink in a field goal at the end of the game to win the game and win their 9th straight AFC West championship. It is the 15th straight win in a 1-score game for the Kansas City Chiefs. That is absurd.
Yeah, that's not even a Tom Brady thing. I don't think he ever did that. I would be surprised because Tom Brady would lose sometimes, It's just this season is, if they end up winning the championship, and maybe this is just like because it was kind of a coming of age year for me in sports, it reminds me of that Ohio State national championship where they ended up beating the Miami Hurricanes, where every single game for that Ohio State team in the early 2000s was a close game, but they managed to win them all, and they ended up being an undefeated national champion that nobody thought was that great of a champion, yet they're an undefeated national champion.
It's staggering. They always execute in the critical spot. Like it's not an accident that they keep winning these games. That's the thing. And I know that everyone's going to focus on, the field goal doinking in at the end of the game, which, yeah, they got a little lucky, clearly. But here's the thing that I feel like people don't give them enough credit for. Chargers kick a field goal to go up 17-16. There's 4.5 minutes left in the game. Not only do the Chiefs go down and get the field goal to win the game, they use up all the time. They don't give the Chargers an opportunity to get the ball back and answer. That's execution at an extremely high level. That's a credit to Andy Reid. It's a credit to Patrick Mahomes. They always do this. They understand how to manage the game, and it's why they keep winning these 1-score games because they don't ever screw it up.
It's if you're playing the Chiefs and they need a score, they're going to use all the clock. And if you're playing the Chiefs and you need a score, you might get it, but they make sure you get it, and then they have time. It's always Patrick Mahomes with the ball at the end. That's right. That's how it's always Patrick Mahomes gets to decide the game.
It's infuriating if you're not a fan of the Chiefs, but if you're a Kansas City, like how many times as Niner fans are we sitting there in the fourth quarter with a lead and we're scared out of our wits, right? Because you're like, oh my God, we're going to blow it.
Yeah.
With the Chiefs, they could be down multiple scores and you're sitting there in the fourth quarter like, we'll pull it out. It'll be fine. We'll find a way. It must be nice.
It is definitely two sides to the same coin. It is the Chiefs always win, so they feel perfectly content in those moments. And the Niner fans, they can have a 10-point lead with 5 minutes to go, and we're sweating.
And I think that feeds into the next one, right? The next time the Chiefs are in a close game, like they're not going to freak out. Whereas the 49ers, sometimes if it feels like you could feel them sort of tense up a little bit in those moments. And it's just like creates this feedback loop, and it's never ending. And good for the Chiefs, I suppose. They're 12-1 now, sitting in the driver's seat for the number 1 seed in the AFC. For the Chargers, they fall to 8-5. Chargers have had a good year. Justin Herbert got a little bit banged up. To me, like, can you please get him some weapons? Please. I know this is the first year of the Harbaugh era, so I don't want to bang on them too much. But, I mean, we're sitting there with the Chargers, and we're like, oh, Ladd McConkey can't play. Their offense is going to be desperate. It's like, dude, Ladd McConkey's a rookie. If that's your best option, like, you have not done a good enough job surrounding Justin Herbert with players.
I'm just going to say it. You know who is kind of like a Harbaugh guy?
Who?
Deebo Samuel.
Hey, you can have him.
That's where I'm at as a Niner fan. You can have him. You could have had him yesterday, in my opinion. Yeah. But he does strike me. He's kind of a utility. He's something unique that I think Harbaugh likes. He's somebody that's physical, which Harbaugh likes. He does strike me as a Harbaugh guy. I don't think it would work out because newsflash, Deebo can't get open on his own. But it does strike me as something that they might try to give Herbert a weapon.
We'll see. We're a long way from that. Obviously, we have to finish this season. Chargers are still having a good year. Like I said, they're still 8-3. They're doing just fine.
8-5. Yeah.
8-5. Yeah. Apologies. They are 6th in the AFC right now. They have the tiebreaker over the Broncos because of the head-to-head. So they are sitting in the playoffs. If the season ended today, they could get as high as 5th, depending on how things go with the Ravens and the Broncos and how everybody finishes up. But they're not catching the Chiefs, so they're not going to get any higher than 5th. But still, Jim Harbaugh, what a shock. Goes to a program, wins immediately. It's what the man does, even though I know they lost on Sunday.
Yeah, they're a team I wouldn't want to play in the playoffs. Nope. I don't think they're quite there with the top AFC teams. I wouldn't put them with Buffalo. I wouldn't put them with Kansas City. I would rather face them than Baltimore or Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. They might be 5th. They're in the running for 5th, which is just insane because they're still a team I wouldn't want to face. They're a team without a glaring weakness is what they are. They just don't have anything that they're dominant at. They're kind of the opposite of, say, the Ravens and the Bills, where their offense is just so crazy good that they can have that Achilles heel of their defense being so-so, having games like the Bills yesterday giving up 44 points. The Chargers have a good defense. I wouldn't say great. They have a good enough offense, but it's not great. They just don't have a weakness.
The Chargers are preheating right now. The Jim Harbaugh Chargers are preheating. The oven is not quite there yet, but it could be as soon as next year. We'll have to see what Harbaugh and company do in the offseason. Next up, let's go to the NFC. Eagles, Panthers. The Eagles eke out a win over Carolina. And I got to say, eke out is the right word because Carolina, I mean, they're a drop pass away from winning the game. Bryce Young hits the receiver. I can't remember who it was. Was it Xavier Legette, I want to say? And he's got a ball, and it looks like it's a touchdown. When I saw it live, I said, oh, my God, it's a touchdown, and that guy that bet $3 million on the Eagles is going to lose all his money. And then they reviewed it. Turns out it hit the ground, incomplete pass, and Philly escapes Carolina, or escapes the game, I should say, because it was in Philly, with a 22-16 win.
Yeah, escape is the right word. This was not a good game for the Philadelphia Eagles, but luckily they had a bad game against a bad opponent. They got away with the win. They have been really good for the last month and a half, so they could afford to drop one, but luckily it came against the Panthers and they didn't end up losing, so they keep cruising on. They keep their hopes alive for the 1 seed in the NFC.
And that's the thing. Philly has everything in the world to play for, to not come out lethargic and not have a trap game, because Philly would be a brutal place to have to go and play. That is not fun for anybody. They would benefit greatly from having the number 1 seed, particularly because if nothing else, it would stop them from having to go to Detroit or Minnesota or, somewhere else.
Well, there's a key thing here. If they get home field advantage and they face Detroit in the NFC Championship game, which is a very likely situation, Detroit has to play outside in the cold.
And they have only played outside, I think, twice all year, or they will only play outside twice all year. Jared Goff is not good in the cold. So, yeah, Philly had every reason to come out and handle their business, and they almost didn't. Jalen Hurts, 14 of 21 for 108 yards. A.J. Brown clearly ticked off after the game. A.J., what do the Eagles need to improve on? Quote, passing. How hard was it for the receivers to find a rhythm? Quote, incredibly tough. And now we got Brandon Graham publicly saying that Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown don't like each other, and they're beefing right now, and they have serious issues. And I just can't get this out of my head, Levin, because I remember last year when the Eagles were, 10-1, and the report came out that they were the most miserable 10-1 team, and they crashed and burned down the stretch. And I'm not saying that's going to happen this year, but when you've got issues like this, when the team is winning, and Philadelphia is winning, they are 11-2 on the season. That is not good juju. Nick Sirianni's got to get these two in a room, and he's got to get them to figure it out, especially because Nick Sirianni doesn't really have anything else to do. He doesn't handle the offense. He doesn't handle the defense. Like, fix this, dude. You're 11-2. You shouldn't have these problems, but they do.
I am still mad that A.J. Brown is not a 49er. That was my draft crush that year. I said in pre-draft that he reminded me of Terrell Owens, T.O., and I guess he's going to be on and off the field like Terrell Owens. I get that he's frustrated, but to say that after a win, it's not a good look. It is not a good look.
A lot of that going around from wide receivers. Speaking of,
we'll
get to that in a minute, but credit to the Panthers. I want to give them a little bit of love. They have looked awful this season, but they are playing much tougher recently, and they have nothing to play for. So I want to give them some love because they could easily have packed up shop, and they didn't. They lost 22-16 yesterday. They lost 26-23 to the Buccaneers the week before. They lost 30-27 to the Chiefs the week before that. So they are a pain in the neck for anybody that's playing them right now.
It's a testament to the coaching staff because it would have been easy for them to lose that locker room and the players to say, yeah, they're going to hit reset again next year. But I think with the way they're finishing, they're not hitting reset. They're going to continue on with this regime. And I think that there's reason to be optimistic for the future.
Speaking of reasons to be optimistic, let's go to Seahawks Cardinals now. Seattle putting a little distance between themselves and everybody else in the NFC West. They get the 30-18 win over the Arizona Cardinals. I don't have a ton of faith in Seattle, but maybe I should give them a little more credit. They're 8-5. They're 5-1 on the road this year, and they're leading the division.
Geno Smith is leading the league in passing yards. Not something I ever thought I would say this late in the season.
Right.
But he is.
Out loud.
Look, they're a flawed team. I don't see them making any Super Bowl, but they are finding ways to win in a division where most of the rest of the division is finding ways to lose.
That's true. And that's a credit to Mike McDonald and his staff there. Seattle, I didn't realize this. They've won 7 straight games over the Cardinals. That is not a rivalry. That is hammer meets nail. And Kyler Murray, 2 picks on back-to-back passes. When the Cardinals can't run the ball, they look like a totally different team. They can't get the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm stunned. They don't even use him. They use Trey McBride a ton, which is great because he's really good. But they can't get the football to one of their best offensive weapons. And that is, that has to be laid at the feet of Jonathan Gannon and the coaching staff there. You got to find a way to figure it out, man.
It could also just be a Kyler Murray thing. I'm not exactly sold on him. They're a team that they should hedge their bet in the offseason. Bring in a veteran that might be able to take over as the starter or draft somebody. I wouldn't say first round necessarily, but a second round pick. You know what I mean? They should be hedging their bet because Kyler Murray is not progressing. He's doing what he's always done. Maybe it's not all, cliff Kingsbury that falls apart midseason. Maybe it's a Kyler Murray thing.
Kyler ended up 25 of 38 on the day, 259 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Also, just 3 carries for 16 yards. That he's got to be able to run for more too. They got to dial it up or figure it out because, I mean, he runs like a toddler that just stole his parents' phone. He's very difficult to catch once he gets moving. And
slippery.
Yeah, if he can't do that, then he's playing with one hand tied behind his back, essentially. But credit to the Seahawks. They get the job done, and they now control their destiny in the NFC West. If they win out, nobody's touching them. Now, they have a very difficult schedule the rest of the way. Seattle has Green Bay on Sunday Night Football next week. That's a huge game. Then they play the Vikings after that. Then they're in Chicago to take on the Bears. And then they are in LA against the Rams in week 18. So the Seahawks schedule down the stretch here is very tricky.
That week 18 game might be the game of the week. That could decide the division. We'll see. I'm not sold on any team in the NFC West, honestly. So this is a case where Seattle could lose and they look over and all the other teams in the NFC West also lost.
Right. That very easily could happen. And we'll see. We'll see if Geno can continue the story, leading the NFL in touchdown and passing yards. That is wild. Let's stay in the NFC. Let's go to the homecoming, so to speak, for Kirk Cousins, going to Minnesota to take on the Vikings. And Sam Darnold put a whooping down on Atlanta. Count them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 touchdowns for Sam Darnold. That, of course, is a career high. 347 yards. That is a career high. And the Vikings spank Atlanta 42-21.
Yeah. This is 2 quarterbacks heading in opposite directions.
Yep.
I was wrong on Sam Darnold. I kind of put him in the Jared Goff. I'm never going to fully trust him because I've seen when the pressure really comes and it's a big moment, they tend to fold. So until I see him do it in a big true moment, I'm not going to believe in him. But he's on pace for a 37 passing touchdown season.
Ooh.
37 with completing 68.4% of his passes, by the way. Like it's an insane season that's only been done by a few quarterbacks in NFL history to complete that high of percentage and have at least 37 passing touchdowns. Meanwhile, there's Kirk Cousins, and I'm going to have a bit of trivia here for you. Kirk Cousins, last 4 games, 0 touchdowns passing and 8 interceptions. It is only the 3rd time somebody has had a 4-game stretch with 0 passing touchdowns and at least 8 interceptions since 2000. Can you name the other 2 instances? And I'll give you a clue. They were both in 2005.
2005? I have no idea.
You should have an idea on one of them.
Alex Smith?
Alex Smith is one of them. And Brett Favre is the other one.
That makes sense, actually.
Yeah. So it is the 3rd instance since 2000 that somebody's had 0 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. I think if he has a first half next week that's like what he's been playing, you might see him get pulled.
And it's a bad loss for the Falcons because with the Buccaneers win, they now fall a game behind Tampa Bay in the NFC South for the division lead. So this is one they needed to have. How about this do you know the Falcons racked up 496 yards in the game? 496 yards of offense. Every drive they had, all 9 of them crossed midfield. And they only scored 21 points in the game. Sounds familiar to 49ers fans. 496 yards, and you lost the game by 21 points.
Well, it was tied going into the 4th quarter. They fell apart in the 4th quarter. That's when they fell apart.
Yeah, that's true. It was 21-21 going into the 4th quarter, and the Vikings just went touchdown, touchdown, touchdown. See you later. At one point, Sam Darnold, and I don't mean to discredit him because he did a great job of avoiding the rush. And then he looks downfield, and Justin Jefferson is way down there with just one guy relatively near him, and Darnold chucks it up there. And I don't know what the Falcons defender is doing. He's stumbling all around like he's drunk, and he just falls down. It's like, dude, you're guarding Justin Jefferson. You got to do better than that.
I don't understand what defenses do against the Vikings. Is Addison a decent wide receiver? Yeah. Could they still win with him having a big game? Yeah. But your best chance of winning is just saying, we're double covering Justin Jefferson, and he is not going to do anything today. And if the rest of the guys want to step up and beat us, then the rest of the guys step up and beat us. That's your strategy against the Vikings.
I saw a great stat. Jordan Addison and Justin Jefferson are the first Vikings wide receiver duo to each have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in a game. Now think about that. The Vikings had Randy Moss and Chris Carter. They had Stephon Diggs and Adam Thielen. But the first duo to have 100 yards and 2 touchdowns in the same game is Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. That's an impressive stat considering the Vikings' history at wide receiver.
Yeah. I mean, part of the factor is there's their history at quarterback.
Well, yeah, but you would think that
it's not great. But yes, it's a great stat, like you said. Justin Jefferson should never put up those stats. You should be saying, we'll do everything we have to take out Justin Jefferson. I don't care if that means our 4th string corner is one-on-one with Jordan Addison. That's your best strategy.
He had gone, I think, 6 straight games without a touchdown, which was the longest streak of his career. That streak is now over in a big way. Minnesota just keeps churning along, and they're keeping up with the Lions, keeping up with the Joneses. Isn't that what they say?
Yeah, they are. I just don't trust Darnold, but I feel like I'm going to keep saying that, and then we're going to see them in the Super Bowl, and it's going to be like, how are they here?
Well, here's the thing. I think it's reasonable to say Sam Darnold is playing way better than he ever has. He's been having a really good season. And also, I would not be stunned at all. I kind of expect the Vikings to be one and done in the playoffs. And I don't because part of what goes into it is I've seen Sam Darnold for a really long time. Yes, he's had a really good year, but the bigger sample size shows you that he's going to struggle in clutch moments. And when you get to the playoffs, it's a different animal. And would you be stunned if I told you the Vikings were one and done in the playoffs?
No,
of course not. But
let's play devil advocate here, though. Let's say they make just the NFC Championship game. Mm-hmm. Sam Darnold doesn't crap the bed, but he's not amazing in the playoffs, and he finished the season kind of like how he's played this year. How do you go to JJ McCarthy next year?
Well, that was the interesting thing. Before the game started, I think it was Schefter or somebody. Forgive me, I can't remember who it was. It might not have been Schefter, but somebody reported that there have been no extension talks with the Vikings, and that they're just going to make that switch, and Darnold could possibly become a free agent. If you're Minnesota, I would not be too quick to do that. Sam Darnold's like 25 years old, still
27.
He's 27.
Yeah, I looked it up today. 27.
Okay, still quarterbacks play till they're 40. It's not like you'd be pushing JJ McCarthy to the side for 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. If you're Minnesota, all I'm saying is let the year play out and let's see where everything is at the end of the year. You don't have to decide right now. I would let it play out. And look, there's been no bigger Sam Darnold hater than me out there. Nobody has been more wrong on Sam Darnold this year than me. But even I'm saying you can't dismiss keeping him out of hand. That would be a mistake by the Vikings.
I think the problem for the Vikings is they don't have the best cap situation, and I think that's where they're looking at it as, we know we can't afford him, so what's the point? I will say, if I'm the Vikings, I find a way to be able to franchise and then trade him. Get something for him. You might only get a 5th because everybody knows there's no way you're keeping him around, but you could get something for him. I think with the way he's played, unless he just falls off, some team out there will trade you a draft pick in order to give him an extension and give him a contract.
Brisby Life with the comment of the show so far. Shout out to the Twitch fam. Brisby Life says, Darnold playing well enough to make it to the Super Bowl and then do something to hand Mahomes the 3rd straight title. Here's the thing. Mahomes doesn't need the help. He doesn't need anybody to hand it to him. He goes and takes it, but that would be I will say this. If Sam Darnold puts me in the position of having to root for him in a Super Bowl, I will never forgive him.
He might put you in the position of having to ask him questions at the Super Bowl.
That's true, because we'll probably be at the Super Bowl for the Fans First Sports Network.
You're going to start to talk, and he's going to be like, I recognize you. Just be quiet.
I know you. He very well, man. You know what? He'd be 1,000% justified also. All right, let's keep it moving. Steelers, Browns. Pittsburgh gets the 27-14 win. Steelers just keep churning along, Levin. Really good defense. Russell Wilson understands the assignment. Don't screw it up. Make a couple critical touchdown plays, and we will win. And that's what he has been doing. Steelers now 10-3, including 5-1 at home.
Yeah, and I think that there's a bit of a narrative that Russell Wilson is, as you just said, doing just enough not to screw it up. I do think that that's a little misguided. I went and did the numbers on the 7 games that he's played. What would it look like over a 17-game season? And it was 4,400 yards passing, 29 touchdowns passing, and only 7 interceptions. That's pretty darn good quarterback play. I'm not saying he's been amazing. I do think he has flaws, and I do think there are certain defenses that will make him look old, so to speak. But he has been very good for them.
No George Pickens in this game, too. So he's missing his number one weapon. What other notes did I have for this? Oh, just the fact that the Steelers are now 2 up on Baltimore. I mean, Baltimore looked unbeatable early in the season. And here we are, week 14, ho-hum, Pittsburgh sitting at the top of the division at 10-3, while Baltimore is 8-5. I know some of Baltimore's losses are close. I get all of that. But Pittsburgh just takes care of their freaking business. And you just pointed it out with Russell Wilson. It's the best quarterback play they've had there since Ben Roethlisberger was there. And that's not really a credit
since before Ben's big arm injury at the end of his career.
And guess what? When you improve your quarterback play and you still have a fantastic defense, you're going to win a hell of a lot of games. And the Steelers are doing that. The Browns are the Browns. Sorry. Jameis Winston is great for a soundbite, not great as a quarterback. And the Browns are they're doomed. They're doomed. Winston is clearly the best quarterback on their roster, but they can't do anything with Deshaun Watson because of that contract. And so they're just here. They're like a spare team that everybody gets to beat up on.
I don't know that they could afford it, but wouldn't it make a lot of sense for them to be the team that goes and gets Darnold and moves on from Watson? Because the offenses are the same. The 2 coaches are very, very similar. You know what I mean? But I don't know that they can afford that because they still can't get out of the Watson contract for probably years to come.
Do you know what I got to put it on the screen.
It's like still like 70, 80 million, is it not?
No, it's way more than that.
Really?
Look at the dead cap hit for the Deshaun Watson. If you cut him after this season, the dead cap hit is $172 million.
Do a post June 1st. It will go down to it will go down to 118 because you lose that $46 million salary.
I mean, what?
Yeah.
And it's fully guaranteed.
They got 2 years. 2 years of that left.
Even beyond the 2 years. Great. So he plays the 2 years. Then it's a $72 million cap hit.
Well, I'm talking about next year and the year after being the 2 years. And then you hit those 2 void years that aren't real where you have 17.9. Look, the Watson contract, it's not just the worst contract in sports history. It is the unquestioned worst sports contract in history. There is nothing that even compares to how bad this contract is.
He's been so bad. And I feel bad for the Browns fans because no matter how bad your season gets, hope springs eternal, right? Maybe we could draft a guy. Maybe we can do this. But when you have that albatross just hanging around your neck, you are going nowhere fast if you are Cleveland in the salary cap league. But that's the bed they chose to make. Now you have to lie in it, and you're just going to have to swallow a couple more years of bad football.
And you know who's laughing the most or the loudest? Probably Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, probably. I mean, drafted there, set the rookie record for touchdown passes in a single season when he was there as a rookie, and, got banged up a little bit, which I think really hurt him, and he tried to play through it, and then switching coaches and coordinators, and we all know how his story ended up. I mean, he's had multiple stops. Carolina, the Rams. Remember the Rams game where he won a game? He'd been there for like
Mm-hmm.
5 minutes and he ended up winning the game. And now he's sitting in Tampa Bay and life's pretty good. He's got his new contract and things are good if you're Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, he's got 28 passing touchdowns this year, tied with Sam Darnold, I think, for a third in the NFL. He's an entrenched starter, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. He can sling it a little bit. Like there are throws he makes where you're like, damn, that's a number one overall.
There's
draft.
inconsistency there. He has games where you're like,
Yes.
what is going on, Baker? But then he has games it's like, wow, there's only a couple quarterbacks that can have a game like this.
Well, let's talk about it next because they get the 28-13 win over the Raiders. He had 3 turnovers in the first half. It didn't matter because the Raiders are a dumpster fire and Aiden O'Connell got hurt.
Yeah. Aiden O'Connell, if you don't know, which most of you probably don't, but he's had, I think, 3 different knee injuries that he lost seasons going back. I think he had it once in high school and twice in college with Purdue. His knees are horrendous.
Not ideal if you're the Raiders. They're 2-11 on the season. They may fire Antonio Pierce as the head coach. He may not get the chance.
I think, yeah, it's clear he's just not cut out for it.
Never hire the interim guy. Ever.
He reminds me of Mike Singletary, somebody that was a really good motivator. And so he looked the part as an interim. But when it actually became real and he had to find X's and O's and really get into it as the head coaching, he fails because all he is like somebody that's going to go after you. You know what I mean? He's somebody that's got that. He can inspire you because he's going to confront you when you're doing wrong, but that's all he's got.
I remember Antonio Pierce was an analyst when I was working at ESPN, and I always loved having him on the shows because he was awesome. He was a really good analyst. Maybe he could be ready for a head coaching job. I think that he is someone that might have benefited from being a coordinator for a couple more years. He kind of got thrust into this because the Raiders fired their coach, and then he became the coach, and they were playing hard for him. Like, I wouldn't be shocked if he got fired from the Raiders and then coordinated for a couple more years and then became a head coach again and had some success. But right now, it is a disaster for the Raiders. Andre says the Raiders are another pathetic team. They will draft Shedeur Sanders and ruin his career. I mean, they've been searching for a quarterback forever.
Yeah. Can you imagine them having Sanders having to deal with Dion meddling? Because Dion is going to meddle.
Yep.
And you got Davis's, which, they don't like being told what to do. And, the other owner is Tom Brady. I don't think Tom Brady meshes well with Dion. They do not seem similar.
I have no idea, but that is not a cocktail that I would like to drink. I will say that, right? There's too many cooks in that kitchen for me, for sure. But I did mention this earlier, and when we were talking about the Falcons, Tampa Bay is now in first place in the NFC South. They get the win. You dominated when you commit 3 turnovers and still win the game by multiple scores. The Bucs do not have the tiebreaker to Atlanta because they lost both games to the Falcons. So the Falcons don't have to beat the Buccaneers record. They just have to finish tied. That may be something to keep an eye on. Tampa Bay has won 3 straight games, but all over last place teams. If I'm a Bucs fan, I say, I don't care. I play who's on the schedule.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the only reason why Kirk Cousins, I think, has not been benched is because they're right there in it in the division. And that's why I think if he plays terribly this week and they lose, he will get pulled.
Mm-hmm. Not Desmond Ridder. Sorry.
Penix.
Michael Penix is there waiting in the wings. Top 10 draft pick. All right, let's get to our 49ers, Levin. They hop in the DeLorean, go back in time to 2023, and they come out and they shred the Chicago Bears at home, 38-13. San Francisco put up 319 yards in the first half. Chicago put up 4.
And the only person associated with the 49ers not happy is Deebo Samuel.
And we, just like we talked about with the Eagles, right? You're winning. Everything is good. Everybody should be happy. But you could tell after the game, Deebo Samuel was very, very short with the media, gave one-word answers. You could tell he was not happy. And he has exacerbated it now because he took to Twitter, which is never good, after the Niners' best and biggest win of the season, Debo tweets, not struggling at all, just not getting the ball, which, look.
He had 7 touches yesterday.
And how many yards did he have?
He had 35 total yards.
It's one thing for George Kittle to sit there after the Bills game and say, hey, I was open on my routes. I didn't get that many targets. When everything he touches this season turns to gold. That is not the case with Deebo Samuel. He's getting the touches and the targets. He's doing nothing with them. And it's just, you finally had some good vibes for the 49ers. They have been struggling this year. They are decimated by injuries. And finally, they look like themselves. They kicked the hell out of the Bears. And Deebo Samuel is making it about himself. That's not good, man. That's a captain on your team. What's he doing?
He has 22 yards as a high for the last 4 games. He has 85 total receiving yards in the last 4 games, but he has 19 targets. So it's not like he's not getting an opportunity. He has 19 targets. He's averaging 4.5 yards per target. He's getting opportunities. And, oh, by the way, they're trying to give him something by also having him run the ball in that time. Like, he's getting opportunities. We talked about this on the instant reaction yesterday after the game. There were multiple plays yesterday where he had daylight. He turned the corner, and we were both thinking, oh, here we go. Here's the big play, the Deebo, signature play where he's going to turn that corner and just go. And then he runs right to the defender. And not only that, he gets taken down right away by the first defender.
Yep. Which we never saw with Deebo Samuel. There were some plays where the blocking was not great. I totally acknowledge that. But he still got taken down by the first guy. And that was not Deebo. That was the whole point. There were so many plays where Brock Purdy would throw it to him and he would have a guy and the guy would have him dead to rights and he would just break the tackle and run for 7-8 more yards. He's not doing that this year. And more than that, I just hate that he made it about himself after this win. He should have said, Jawan Jennings killed it. I'm so proud of him. I'm so glad to see George Kittle, contribute. He could have even said, hey, I would love to contribute more because I feel like, if I got some targets, I would, I could help this team win too. But just to do it like this and to just deny, it's just a bad look for Deebo Samuel. He left the game the other day when he had a huge drop after the Packers game and didn't talk to the media. It's just not a good look. This is the guy that's supposed to be setting the example for your team, and instead he's doing all the wrong things.
So let's recap the last 3 weeks, right? He gets into it with a teammate and pushes him in the throat.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next game, he pieces out of the locker room before interviews and claims he didn't. And then basically gets thrown under the bus and told, yeah, you did.
By the 49ers beat, who never challenges anybody.
Yeah. And now this. That's his last 3 weeks. And I want to put this up because it's the comment of the show for me. Brisby by Life from Twitch says, I appreciate Deebo's efforts to get cut in the offseason. It's hilarious, but it's also kind of true. I do appreciate that this makes it a no-brainer. It's clear the Niners have to move on.
It's terrible. Like, we should be sitting here talking about the fact that the 49ers rolled up the Bears. The 49ers held the Bears to, again, not exaggerating, 0.2 yards per play in the first half of this game. 0.2 yards per play. The defense looked good. The offense looked easy for Brock Purdy. He's chucking the ball 50 yards down the field to Jawan Jennings. He's lobbing it up for Isaac Arendo, who's been a starter for all of 5 minutes. The Niners were rolling down the field. And we're sitting here talking about Deebo Samuel. I mean, nobody gets more stuff schemed up for him and put in a position to look good than Deebo Samuel, and he still can't do it. I'm done with him, man. I am done. Ever since he changed his number to number 1, he's not been the same guy.
Should have gone with the number 0 because that's what he's been.
That's how many tackles he breaks. Andre Garibay says Matt Mayoko has already said Deebo will be back next season. I'm not so sure about that. Why would be my response?
I think if there was any chance, the way he's reacting seals the deal. You think Kyle Shanahan's happy about this?
And
they finally changed the mojo.
Yep.
And now he brings it back to the bad mojo.
Completely agree. Completely agree with you. And we have not seen this in the 49ers. If anybody could speak up and complain like this, it's George Kittle. George Kittle should be a no doubt first ballot Hall of Famer, and he just doesn't get targeted, and he never complains. Even after the Buffalo game, he didn't even really complain. That was the most gentle nudge by George Kittle to Kyle Shanahan of like, hey, maybe you could target me more. And that's the most he's ever done in his tenure with the 49ers. And Deebo Samuel's out here bitching. I'm sorry, man. You got to go, Deebo. You're not a good example for the younger players on the team. You got to go.
It's not just that if anybody could say this, it's George Kittle. It's if anybody couldn't say this, it's Deebo
Right,
Samuel.
yeah.
Because like you said, he gets more schemed up for him than maybe anybody in the NFL. They have lost a Super Bowl because Kyle Shanahan's obsession trying to get him the ball. They lost the Super Bowl over trying to force feed you, Deebo, less than a year ago. Shut up.
You couldn't come through when it mattered in that game. You absolutely could not. And you haven't come through all year this year. You made one play against Seattle on a busted coverage. Yippee. Maybe he makes up for it Thursday against the Rams. I hope he does. But if I'm Kyle Shanahan, I'm not dialing up anything for Deebo Samuel Thursday. On a game where you are clinging to life for your playoff hopes, it's Kittle, it's Jennings, it's Garendo, and it's not Deebo Samuel. Not at all. I do not want.
It's not just the lack of production. He's also made mistakes, fumbles multiple times. I don't know if you noticed that. On one of those end rounds, he got hit and the ball came out and he was able to land back on it as he was hitting the ground.
And he fumbled last week against the Bills on a kickoff return. So, yeah, no, do not dial up touches for number one. But the 49ers get the win. They're technically not eliminated. They need a ton to go right. They play Thursday night against the Rams in a massive, massive game, and we'll see what they come out and do. Moving along now, let's go to the AFC. Dolphins, Jets. Aaron Rodgers had his first 300-yard passing game in almost 3 years, and the Jets still lost it overtime, 32-26.
Yeah. It's over. I don't know what the Jets are going to do this offseason, but they're not ready. They're not there. It is weird because they do have a lot of talent. Like you look at it, okay, they got the wide receivers. They got a good running back, I believe, in Breece Hall.
Yep.
They have pieces. They obviously have maybe the best cornerback in the entire league on the defense. They have Keenan Williams on the defensive line. They have the ability to suddenly be a winner, but I don't think it is with Aaron Rodgers.
Quinnen Williams. Yeah, I agree with you. And he looked good last week too, and they still couldn't find a way to get the win. What do you make of Miami? They're 6-7 right now. They're the 9th seed in the AFC. They finish up with Houston, San Francisco, at Cleveland, at the Jets. Are you sticking a fork in the Dolphins, or are you giving them a shot?
I give them a shot. It's a shot slightly better than the Niners, but it's similar. They have to win out. You got to be 10-7 to make the playoffs in the AFC. And even then, you might end up losing a tiebreaker. But the Dolphins have found it, and what they found was they need Tyreek Hill. That's what they found.
And Tua Tagovailoa, man, 300 yards in I think it's 3 straight weeks. Dolphins overcame 2 different deficits in the fourth quarter, 8 points and 3 points to get the win. Credit to them. They could have packed it up, and they haven't done that either. So that's a credit to Mike McDaniel and the staff there. Brisbee Life says funniest offseason move would be for the Jets to bring Sam Darnold back. Can you imagine?
You want to talk about seeing ghosts?
Yeah. I mean, there's no way he would ever go back.
No, I think that is one that even if the Jets reached out, he would say no. That's not the right fit.
The Jets have the chance to do the funniest thing ever. That's what you say about the possibility there. But credit to the Dolphins. Like I said, Mike McDaniel, has them playing well. At least
one of those two need to change their name.
Yeah, there's too many McDonald's and McDaniels.
Mike McDaniel and Mike McDonald being head coaches at the same time. Not okay.
All right, a couple more games to get to. Saints, Giants. This is another game, Levin, where you have a potential game-tying or game-winning field goal blocked. Saints blocked the Giants field goal with 11 seconds left, and they squeak away with the 14-11 win.
Yeah, this is the don't care game of the week.
No, it's not. No,
Ah, come on. Why?
no, it's not because we have
Why? Because they had Taysom Hill? Or no, he
no.
didn't play.
We
Oh.
have Jags Titans after this. That's the
Uh,
don't care game of the week.
no, they can. I guess they can both be. I don't care about either game. These are two teams going nowhere fast, and I would argue they're the two teams that are in the worst situation for going anywhere going forward. The Jets need a complete reset, but right now they're on the outside looking in at getting the number one pick because the Raiders own it, and the Saints are going nowhere, and they have one of the worst cap situations in NFL history coming.
Yeah, the Saints have been running. I mean, Sean Payton ran the credit card bill up on the Saints and then bailed on them. In case you are wondering, I will let you know that the Raiders have 11 losses and the New York Football Giants have 11 losses as well. So that is a race to the bottom between the Giants.
Raiders have the first pick because it becomes strength of schedule, and their strength of schedule is something like 0.04 worse. So it's very much up in the air.
One thing to note for the Saints, Derek Carr broke his non-throwing hand, so he's going to miss some time. They're not putting him on IR, but it's going to be Spencer Rattler for the Saints. So, lock in for that down the stretch.
Yeah, they're going nowhere fast.
And last but not least, the Jags Titans. And I believe Mike Florio had it correct in his write-up. Who cares? Really, who cares? The Jags won, in case you're wondering, but who cares? There's nothing happening in this game. The Jags are going to fire Doug Peterson. The Titans are just like a spare team that's always there. They have no quarterback. Will Levis ain't it. I'm sorry. They have not a ton of talent outside of Jeffrey Simmons. It's just a who cares bowl.
Yeah, the Titans are not a team that's going to be winning anytime soon. Like you said, they have Jeffrey Simmons, and that's about it. I mean, Tony Pollard is good, but
yeah, that's true.
I mean, he's like 26, 27 as a running back with a knee injury history. So he's got a couple years left, and this team is at least a couple years away from doing anything.
They're always a couple years away from ever doing anything.
They can't get a quarterback.
They haven't been good since Steve McNair and Eddie George were there. Really. I know they were technically the number one seed a couple years ago, but nobody believed in them. Nobody was scared of them. I don't even remember what they did in the playoffs because they were such a non-factor. They haven't been good since Steve McNair and Eddie George.
They're the team that keeps missing on quarterbacks. They had Vince Young, they drafted, miss. They drafted Jake Locker,
yeah,
miss. They drafted Marcus Mariota, miss. They've had multiple top 10 quarterbacks drafted in the last, let's say 20 years, and they've all bombed and not been good enough. And usually when you do that, it takes 2 or 3 years to be able to move on. So you're looking at a decade's worth of having a quarterback that's just not good enough.
They were 12-5 in 2021. They were the number one seed. They played the Bengals in the divisional round. Ryan Tannehill threw 3 picks. They lost immediately. They haven't had a winning record since. They're just there. They're a team that it's like filling out the schedule. It's like, well, we have a weird number of teams. We need another team so one team doesn't get a bye. It's like, all right, throw the Titans in there. That's all it is. And the Jags are just done. And they paid Trevor Lawrence all that money for some reason.
Yeah. It is weird that the Titans in that time frame have had probably the best running back of this era or generation.
Yeah, Travis Henry. Derek.
Wow. That's a throwback.
Sorry. Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Derrick Henry, obviously. And he looks good in Baltimore as well. So that's it. Cowboys Bengals are playing right now. It's 14-10 Cincinnati with 2 minutes to go in the second. That's the Simpsons broadcast. Did you check any of that out before we came on?
I did not check anything out. I did kid bedtime before we came on. I don't know what's happened so far, but my situation is I make the playoffs if I win my fantasy matchup, and I have the Bengals running back, and my opponent has both of the Bengals receivers. So if they're running the ball, I'm in a good spot. If they're passing the ball, I'm in trouble.
Are you referring to Chase Brown?
Yes.
Well, he has 5 carries for 16 yards with a long of 5. Jamar Chase has 5 catches for 60 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, I'm in trouble.
Although Chase Brown does have 3 receptions for 40 yards and a touchdown.
Oh, okay. That works then.
T. Higgins 2 catches for 23 yards.
Okay. So he has T. Higgins and Jamar Chase, which, by the way, I would absolutely despise. That's something I guarantee I would have traded one of them during the, I cannot stand having people that don't match up. Like, I will have a quarterback and a wide receiver. I will not have a running back wide receiver on the same team or 2 wide receivers from the same team. I don't care how good they are overall. The chances of both of them going off in the same week is slim to none.
Right. Exactly. By the way, just one note in this game, because I'm just looking at the box score. Ezekiel Elliott has 1 carry for 1 yard in the game. That dude is stealing money this year. He has 11 games played. He has 59 carries for 189 yards and 2 touchdowns. That is a whopping 3.2 yards per carry for Zeke Elliott.
Speaking of people stealing money this year, we got a great comment here from Andre Garibay. CD and Jamar already have more yards tonight than Debo the last 4 games.
But he's not struggling, 11. It's not his fault.
How much does Debo make? Yeah.
$23 million a year.
He's making about $4 million per yard of the last 4 games.
Gross. Like, that is so bad. And like, he's sitting there saying, I'm not struggling. Like, I responded to him. I was like, dude, the games are on TV. Like, we can see you. It's not a target issue. It's you don't do anything anytime you get the ball. He had one good catch yesterday for 20 yards. That was it. And then the rest of it was a giant nothing burger. All he did was stall the offense out. Give me a break, Debo.
Yeah. He's earned about $1 million per 15 yards over the last 4 weeks. If Justin Jefferson did that in a year, he would end up with $100 million.
I never heard more talk from a guy that's had 1 good season in his career than Debo said.
I threw that out there. Prior to his breakout year that got him his contract, the first 3 seasons, he averaged, I think it was 56 point something yards per game. Over the last 3 seasons since he got paid, he's averaging, it was 56 yards per game, but it's been 3 weeks since I looked that up. So now he's actually averaging less.
Yay. All right. That's going to do it for this edition of the show. Please rate, review, and follow the Gold Standard Podcast Network. We do this show every Monday or sometimes Tuesday, depending on Levitt's work schedule, but we do it every week. We recap the whole week. We started it up a couple weeks ago. We appreciate all your support. Give us a chance. I promise you, we will make you a better, smarter fan. Levin, enjoy the rest of Monday Night Football.
I hope so.
We'll talk to you next week.